I did my first gig with Luther Cody, I guess it was 90. We played our first gig my homecoming year, 92, at the homecoming dance. Just a couple songs, and that was 92. So I guess 96, I just got out of college. And we played a couple gigs on Beale Street, and it's been going like that ever since.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I always had like this drive and ambition and desire to do it, but I wasn't a natural at all. And I really practiced a lot growing up. But Cody, on the other hand, as a young kid, just took to the guitar like that. We both got guitars when I was about 5 and he was like 3.
Honestly, there was never much competition between the two of us. He's not very competitive just by nature. He reached an age where, at like say 14, I was still 10. And he was just progressing so fast on the guitar that I moved to drums really to accompany him.
I was really working on the guitar a lot and starting to get somewhere. And as soon as he got behind the drum set, once again, he just sat down and started just playing like a grown man. It was amazing. And we've had a real rock and roll band ever since then, you know. We were a basement band, a garage band, we played parties, we played, anything.
I grew up in the gospel church. From age 1 to 12, I listened to nothing but gospel music. Maybe some Rufus Thomas. On Saturday, we had a blues station, WDIA in Memphis, and it was all blues Saturday. And if my granddaddy felt good drinking a little moonshine, we would listen to a little blues on Saturday.
So we started the All-Stars, and by 97, everybody else but Cody had quit the band because they weren't into it. I called Chris, and we'd played together off and on over the years. We're old friends from school. I've known Chris since 7th grade. And, but all through those years, he was playing in church and singing in church, and he was amazing at sports, basketball and football. And, but I called Chris, and he was like, "Paul quit? When do we practice?" You know, and so we rehearsed a couple of times, and ever since then, it was just an amazing combination because we were doing hill country blues, and then Chris brought in, which is a very modal, drony type of blues. There's not a lot of chord changes, but Chris brought this gospel harmony sense to it. With the bass underneath, he just opened the music wide open.
When the North Mississippi All-Stars started to really come into its own, I was so thrilled because it reminded me of, say, the Allman Brothers and maybe some Jimi Hendrix and even Mudboy and the Neutrons.
You know, my father, he was playing with Rod Cooder and Jim Keltner a lot back in those days before he started producing records again. And he also, in Memphis, he had a band with his friends called Mudboy and the Neutrons. And those guys are the original, I think, inspiration. Watching those guys as a little kid that made I always wanted to play music ever since I was a little kid. The first word I ever said was in my dad's studio, and I looked up at the tape machine, I was like, this is what my mom tells me, I don't remember, I was like, Studio Leo.
Start with that question.
Yeah, my dad played guitar back in the, when I was a baby, quartet music, and that's why I learned to play bass with him. He played guitar, and so I just kind of picked the guitar up, you know, never really learning, just picking it up and strumming it and learning on my own. Listened to a lot of old gospel music back in the day, and just picked it up on my own.
I started playing the keyboard at the same time as my drum. Like I added the keyboard to my drum kit, really just out of, well, we're a trio, you know, and there are definitely certain spots in the songs where I heard chords or something that needed to be played that wasn't there. So it's just a way for me to, you know, I guess I'm, you know, double multitasking, you know. I need to be on the payroll twice.
As kids, we were just really experimental. We would go through phases and play all types of different music, you know. But what I've been concentrating on for the last, you know, 10 years is like, well, it got to a point where with our rock and roll band DDT, I couldn't write in that vein anymore. All I was listening to was like Fred McDowell a lot, Mississippi Fred McDowell, and all I was just the Mississippi hill country blues that you know, like I said, I grew up loving the classic blues, but then when I realized that there was modern day country blues right in my backyard, it just blew my mind and changed my life. And it was multi-generational too. There were musical families, Other and his family, RL and his family, Junior Kimbrough and his family. So there were like these amazing, wise bluesmen and their younger sons and grandsons that we could hang out with and jam with and party with, and just as contemporaries. And don't get me wrong, we're a rock and roll band. I've never claimed to be a blues band, because to me that's just what happens when young kids play, you know, traditional music. It just mutates and changes, you know, and like from Elvis Presley to Led Zeppelin to the Beastie Boys or whatever, it's just, that's kind of like part of the mutation that is rock and roll. We've always experimented with blending, especially hip-hop elements, or more, well, coming from the South, more like dirty South gangster rap into our yeah, I like the combination of blues and rap, because rap is folk music.
There was definitely a period in my life where I discovered like the psychedelic late 60s rock and roll. I started playing the washboard in a jug band that we had years ago called Gut Bucket, and the electric washboard was a gift from a guy named John Kane, who was a student down in Georgia at the time. And I didn't know him, and now we're friends, we're good friends, but he came up to me and he was like, you know, are you the guy that plays the washboard? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, my brother's gonna meet you tomorrow night in Athens, and this was in Atlanta. He was like, he'll be in Athens and he's gonna have the electric washboard I built for you. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. And he gave it to me. I thought it was so nice, I started playing it at our shows, just hoping that John would hear about me using it, you know. And I, you know, the only real thing I added to it was the wah-wah pedal and you know, the effects.
My friend back in Memphis builds the cigar boxes. He calls them the Lobos. His name is John Lowe, and you know, it's based on the classic diddley bow design. I actually built one when I was a kid, which is like a 2x4 with a coffee can resonator and some nails and wood and a bottle. And you know, it's an old ancient instrument, and I fell in love with it, you know. And for the song on Electric Blue Watermelon, Mississippi Boll Weevil, it was just perfect for that song. It's an old Charlie Patton song, and I recorded, most of that song was recorded in my living room. It's kind of like Cody's electric washboard. It's funny, but it's just like a futuristic jug band instrument. I don't know.
Once I started doing it every night, people reacted strongly, and it got to the point where if I didn't play it at a show, they would get upset. You know, the guys would find me in the parking lot and be like, hey man, why do you play that washboard? I want my money back, you know, whatever. So I, you know, it's kind of a gimmick, I think, but it's also incredibly psychedelic. You know, I call it the psychedelic sex machine.
Fans are great for the All-Stars, you know, because no fans know us. So people that come out and support live music and buy these expensive tickets and travel all over with us, that's a, you know, it's a great thing.
North Mississippi All-Stars are so under the radar as far as like, you know, we've never made a music video, and we just put out 6 records. You know what I'm saying? We've just never really tried to do that, and it's a whole different way of making having a career in the music business, obviously, as opposed to what, you know, say modern rock bands do these days. But the thing I admire most about the All-Stars fans is just the fact that they know who we are, you know, and that they found us on their own.
Yeah, I've been saying from the stage a lot, you know, how much, I want to tell people how much we respect and appreciate everybody that supports live music, you know, and because, you know, we make records and it fulfills a craving inside us, but the road is really our bread and butter, and you know, the majority of our life, doing close to 200 shows a year a lot, and the fans, they just mean so much to us, man.
I love them all. So thankful. They're great.
Get 'em up, get 'em up.